Hello, you are watching Shalom World News. I'm Rory McLennan coming to you from Glasgow, Scotland. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. The Vatican Secretary of State has shared his thoughts on the significance of Pope Francis' visit to Marseille after the Mediterranean meetings, calling it an opportunity to promote a spirit of cohesion among European nations. Cardinal Parolin said that Europe needs to find a consensus on migration and asylum as soon as possible. 70 Mediterranean bishops have arrived in the southern French city of Marseille to take part in the Mediterranean meetings, seeking to discover paths to peace. Ahead of Pope Francis' arrival in the city, the Archbishop of Rabat in Morocco, Cardinal Cristobal Lopez Romero, presided over the opening Mass for the bishops on Thursday in Marseille's Cathedral of St. Mary Major. He said the fruit of these meetings should be to establish peace and grow in unity. Pope Francis is continuing his Mediterranean pilgrimage by visiting the French port city of Marseille. He began this journey in Italy's Lampedusa in July in 2013 and has since made apostolic journeys to several other Mediterranean cities. On these visits, the Pope has frequently urged people to stop treating the Mediterranean Sea like a cemetery and instead transform it into a site of encounter, communication and mutual welcome.
The world's most dangerous migrant route is across the Mediterranean. More than 1,200 people have died in the Mediterranean Sea in 2022, adding to the horrifying tally of almost 25,000 deaths since 2014. Half of those embarking on the dangerous journey are from nations like Syria, Eritrea, Somalia, and Afghanistan, which have been ripped apart by war, widespread violence, or oppressive governments. Men, women, and increasingly unaccompanied children transiting through the Mediterranean suffer abuse at the hands of smugglers, armed groups, and private individuals who exploit their desperation. Their voyage of suffering begins in their own nations, torn apart by years of conflict and instability, starting as far away as Pakistan and continuing through the Middle East and countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Pope Francis' visit to the French port city of Marseille at the end of the Rencontres Méditerranéennes organised by the Archdiocese in September is of particular significance because it would help to highlight the need for peace and fraternity in the vast sea region, a crossroads of people, religions, languages, and cultures facing new epochal challenges. Time and again, the Holy Father has expressed solidarity with the victims of numerous Mediterranean tragedies as both the pastor of the Universal Church and the Bishop of Rome. His Marseille visit will bring global attention to the Mediterranean, its problems, its resources, and the role that Christ's followers play in this area of the world. News Desk, SW News.
Iraq's Chaldean Catholic Cardinal Sako is asking for more Vatican support to regain his title of patriarch, which was stripped from him in July by the Iraqi president. Analysts say the action was probably started by a Chaldean Catholic militia leader with connections to Iran who was looking to seize property. Sako and observers accuse Ryan al-Kildani, leader of the Babylon Brigades, which has close ties to Iran, of stripping his title. The US Treasury Department sanctioned al-Kildani in 2019 for alleged human rights abuses, while critics accuse him of seeking control of Chaldean church assets, including properties that Sako oversees. The Vatican Secretary for Relations with States and International Organizations, Archbishop Paul Richard Gallagher, spoke at the United Nations Security Council on peace in Ukraine. He said that the war in the country is not a local matter and that it risks growing beyond Europe. He urged all UN member states to join efforts in the search for a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. Archbishop Gallagher warned that if the war is not stopped and peace is not sought at every turn, the whole world risks plunging into even deeper crises. The Holy See Press Office has released its schedule of the General Assembly of the upcoming Synod, which will take place at the Vatican from October the 4th to the 29th. Synod organisers revealed plans for a pilgrimage for participants and a special evening of prayer for migrants and refugees. On the 4th of October, a solemn Mass will mark the beginning of the Synod's General Assembly. The prayer for migrants and refugees will be led by Pope Francis on the evening of Thursday, October the 19th in St. Peter's Square. A solemn Mass in St. Peter's Basilica on Sunday, October the 29th, will mark the conclusion of the General Assembly of the Synod. During Thursday's press conference, organisers also released an updated list of participants in the General Assembly. Some 464 people will take part in the General Assembly, including 365 voting members, of whom 54 are women. Among the members, there are also 2 Chinese bishops appointed by Pope Francis. The head of the Vatican's dicastery for the service of charity will travel to Ukraine to inaugurate a new home for displaced mothers and children in Lviv. In Lviv, a Russian drone strike set fire to several industrial warehouses, including a warehouse used by the Catholic aid organisation Caritas. Cardinal Konrad Krajewski will open the House of Refuge on behalf of Pope Francis as a sign of support and closeness to the many people who have fled due to the conflict. A new report claims that the United States is no longer a haven for those fleeing religious persecution. The Closed Doors report from the evangelical humanitarian groups World Relief and Open Doors US shows a significant drop in the number of refugees coming to the country, including Christians, Jews and Muslims. It says that between 2016 and 2022, the number of Rohingya Muslim refugees who arrived in the United States decreased by over 60%, the number of Christians by 70%, and the number of Yazidis by 100%. The Egyptian government is being urged to implement reforms in the country's educational system, including assessing materials that the human rights organisation Christian Solidarity Worldwide claims are offensive to non-Muslims. However, the UK-based human rights group praised Egypt for taking positive steps in improving the situation for Jewish and Christian communities in the country, and said that the country could do more, including overhauling its education sector. The National Catholic Council for Hispanic Ministry announced the date of its annual meeting, which will take place from November the 30th to December the 3rd in the city of San Juan in Puerto Rico. This year's theme is From Pastoral Priorities to Pillars of Action. The ministry offers a network and forum for the religious, social, professional and civic advancement of Hispanic Catholics in the United States. The main objective of the annual meeting is to deepen the Council's mission to the US Hispanic community. The Pentifical Foundation, Aid to the Church in Need, has announced the launch of its annual initiative 1 Million Children Praying the Rosary for Peace and Unity, which will take place on October the 18th. The charity said in a note that it wants to entrust to the powerful intercession of the Mother of God all the places where people cannot live in peace, especially in countries that have been most affected by violence in recent times, such as Ukraine, Myanmar, Nigeria and Pakistan. There is a steady and alarming erosion of fundamental rights in India, notably for religious and other minorities. During a hearing on Wednesday, United Nations Special Rapporteur on Minority Issues Fernand de Varenne told the US Commission for International Religious Freedom that the situation in India can be summarised in 3 words: massive, systematic and dangerous. India has previously rejected reports that alleged violations of religious freedom are happening in the country. The hearing comes on the heels of 2 bilateral meetings between Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi and US President Joe Biden. Commission Chair Abraham Cooper said that Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, Dalits and Adivasis are allegedly subject to increased levels of attacks and acts of intimidation in India. He said that these trends and their implication for the US foreign policy should not be ignored. A report released on Wednesday showed that the United Nations has recorded over 1,600 incidents of rights violations against people detained by the Taliban authorities in Afghanistan. Nearly half of these acts of torture and ill treatment are by police and intelligence agents. According to the United Nations mission in Afghanistan, 18 people also died in police custody over the 19 months running to July this year. Around 1 in 10 of the violations were against women. Journalists and civil society members accounted for nearly a quarter of the victims of the violations. The Taliban have staffed and run both the police and the intelligence service since taking over the nation in 2021. And those are your latest headlines. Do join us again next time for more, and do remember in the meantime you can always visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.